Hi book friends, I'm Erin, and this is Erin Go Read. So today I'm going to do a mid-month wrap-up for the month of March, talk about the books that I have read so far. I have completed 4 books as of today, and I am currently in the middle of 2. So let's get started. The book I finished just this morning is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and it's a really small book. Let me give you some perspective. So here, little flowers everywhere. This is like a standard size hardback novel. And look how tiny My Sister the Serial Killer is. It's this tiny little thing. And then even a lot of it's short. It's, I think, 225 pages in this edition. And even there are a lot of really short chapters. So you get a lot of like only partial pages in there. So it's a really quick read, and it's not quite a thriller. So you know that the main character, Karidi is the older sister, and Ayula, her younger sister, has a nasty habit of killing her boyfriends. So Karidi, being the older sister, is always she's like the fixer. So she's always been kind of in charge of her younger sister, and she gets blamed if anything goes awry in Ayula's life. It must have been because Karidi wasn't looking out for her. If Ayula stole an apple from the store, it's because Karidi let her get hungry. So when these boyfriends start turning up dead, she feels responsible. She doesn't want anything to happen to her sister, and so she helps her clean up the mess. And so now she has all this weight of knowing about these deaths and then being worried about the potential fallout for that. So Karidi is a nurse who works in a hospital. She's very good at her job. She seems very put together, and is a bit of a neat freak. She is excellent at literally cleaning up after Ayula's murders. And that's reflected kind of in the rest of her personality. She's just very put together and neat, while her sister is a bit more of a creative, type B kind of. She is beautiful, and that seems to be that all that anyone cares about in her. Nobody but Karidi sees Ayula's flaws, because Ayula is so beautiful. And this comes into play when Ayula comes to visit Karidi at her hospital, and she catches the eye of a doctor who Karidi has a bit of a crush on. They're friends, and the doctor definitely is stopped short by Ayula, and he didn't even know Karidi had a sister, let alone such a gorgeous one. And so now Karidi is faced with, she's fearful for her doctor friend Tade's life, basically, and as well as a bit of jealousy that he is paying attention to her beautiful younger sister, and seemingly with she tries to probe him about what is it that you like about my sister, and he can't even come up with anything other than like she's beautiful and she's perfect. Nothing about her actual personality, who she is, the things that she does, as opposed to Karidi, who has all these wonderful attributes about her. Ayula just skates by everything on her looks, and so much of the story is about what's going to happen between the doctor and Ayula. What's Karidi going to do? Is she going to do anything? There are parts of this book, so I mentioned before when I was talking about the length of the book that there are some really short chapters. Let me see if I can find an example where it's like super short. So I mean, you just have some literally like a page and a half long chapter. So there's a lot of white space, and you kind of jump around between the present, and then sometimes you'll get some background on their family, about how their father was. Their father is dead before the beginning of the story starts, and it can feel a bit choppy and jumpy in points, but I think it may have been intentional, because I think that's kind of supposed to reflect how Karidi is feeling at that time. Things aren't going smoothly for her in her life, and she's really stuck in the middle of things because of her sister's actions and behaviors, and she's coming to realize, like, okay, after 3 deaths, after 3 murders, that's considered a serial killer. So this is one of the nominations for the Women's Prize. So this is now the 4th book that of the books that made the long list that I have read, and I think this is 4 stars. I think is what I ended up giving this on Goodreads. The writing itself is pretty to the point. It's not overly descriptive or lyrical, but I think Braithwaite does a good job of emoting what you need to know in a pretty precise and clear-cut manner. So the next book is actually the first book I finished this month, and that is Winter by Ali Smith. This is the 2nd book in her seasonal quartet. They very, very loosely relate to each other, and each one can be read as a standalone. Spring comes out, I mentioned it in, I think, my March TBR, the actual dates. There's a US and the UK release dates are coming out this spring of 2019. So this was my first Ali Smith book, and if you want a way better, way more insightful, in-depth review of this book, check out Jen Campbell's review on her channel, Jen Campbell, because I will never be as articulate, as deep, as well spoken, and understand writing in general as well as Jen does, and she has an amazingly insightful, in-depth review of this book. I had watched that review a long time ago before I read this book, and I still missed like most of the stuff that she's talking about. I watched her review of it again after I read the book, and there was so much that I missed. It is so layered. So it's told, there's a current, so there's a story, a fictional story being told essentially about 4 people coming together to a house for Christmas. A mother and her son who brings a stand-in actually for his girlfriend. His girlfriend, Charlotte, has broken up with him, and he basically meets a girl at a bus stop and pays her £1,000 to come with him to pose as his girlfriend Charlotte for Christmas to be with his mother. And then the mother's sister, Iris. Ooh. Sorry if the angle just changed there. My dog came and ran through and knocked over my tripod. So, and here he is again. Hey, buddy. Okay, so you have the basic plot of this like Christmas story, and then there's so much more depth in Ali Smith's writing. So she starts off the book with books up backwards. First line of the book is "God was dead to begin with," which is a play on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Marley was dead to begin with. So we have that A Christmas Carol. This is a Christmas story, and that's just the very first line. We start off with all these different layers. It's the first literary reference. There are multiple literary references throughout the book, including Paddington. That I picked up from Jan Campbell. I didn't come up with that one on my own. Without just completely ripping off Jen Campbell, I'm not going to go into the details in the layering and the complexity and the wordplay that Ali Smith uses in this. Just know that the writing is incredible and complex, and if you pick up a quarter of the double meanings and the symbolism in this book, then you're going to really enjoy it. And I do definitely recommend, if you're interested in this book, maybe even before you read it, definitely after you've read it, check out Jan Campbell's review of this, and I will link that down below as well. Autumn is already out. I will probably pick that up and read that in autumn. And I probably have enough to be getting on with now to pick up spring right away. I'll probably wait till it comes out in paperback in this edition. This is the UK edition that I got from bookdepository.com, and so I would like to have the whole quartet in the same editions. So I think those will end up looking beautiful on the shelf next to each other. So anyway, fantastic, a book that you can enjoy. It's fantastic, and it's a book that you can enjoy even without catching all those subtleties and references and complexities. Even a dummy like me can enjoy this book. And then I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So this is the Penguin English Library edition. I mostly listened to this on audiobook with my Libby app through my library, and I read parts of this in the physical edition. What was really helpful at the beginning was, as I was just kind of getting used to the language, was I would either read a bit and then listen to that same bit on the audiobook, or I would have listened to more on the audiobook and then I would come back and read a bit in the physical book until I was kind of getting a handle on the language. And even the audiobook helped with like the intonations and the kind of the tone of the characters, indignation or vexation. A lot of people are vexed in this book. And this was my first time reading. This is my first read of Pride and Prejudice. I previously read Emma, but I basically remember nothing about it. She likes matchmaking. That's pretty much all I remember of that. It was probably 10 years ago, maybe, that I read Emma, and I don't think I did a very thorough understanding of it at the time. So it's interesting when you have such a classic like Pride and Prejudice, and I don't know that I can really review it, and I wasn't reading to review it, more just to experience it. And this is one of our kind of the beginning of the rom-com genre. Romances as we know it, comedy, we have a very unusual for her time character in Lizzie Bennet, who's very outspoken, and she wants to marry for love and not just for money, which was quite unusual at the time. So I just really enjoyed the comedy of manners that it was. Mrs. Bennet, the mother of the 5 girls who just desperately wants what would just make her happy, would be for all of her daughters, all 5 of her daughters, to be happily married to essentially rich men, to marry up. And Mrs. Bennet was quite annoying, I think, but also just really comical, and at the heart of it, she wanted her daughters to be well taken care of. So she's not like she's by no means a gold digger for the sake of being a gold digger. She just wants her daughters well taken care of. So I really enjoyed this. I haven't got a chance to read or to watch any of the adaptations yet, but I do plan to do that pretty quickly. Dog dropped a toy, bouncing the camera around. I'm excited to have read this book. This was number 4 on the PBS Great American Read, and I think I'm going to be doing a bit of maybe like a TBR jar kind of project with the Great American Read list coming up here soon, probably starting with for my April TBR. Lastly, and my favorite book of the month so far, and maybe one of my favorite books ever now, is Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. So I think that, as I suspected, Ishiguru is now one of my favorite authors. I read The Remains of the Day in, I think, January or February, and I might need to hold up a little bit so I don't race through his entire back catalog. But first of all, with this book, the less you know going into it, the better. Because even to know like the genre of the book can be a bit of a giveaway. Shaky dog. But it's essentially a boarding school book, and you have the elements of friendship and relationships with their teachers, and kind of a lot of the typical growing up that you would expect in a boarding school type of book. And then you go on into the characters' young adulthoods and into their, like, the next chapter of their life and what goes on there. So we mostly follow Kathy, our main character, and two of her friends, Ruth and Tommy, from the time that they are young at boarding school up until the point into their adulthood and whatever lies beyond school for them. And so I highly recommend the book. It is quite emotional, but on the like somewhat disturbing level. Like, it's not a horror or anything like that. But it will get you and it will make you think. And that was the thing when I finished reading this book. It's hard to say what I was thinking about without giving away what was going on. But it's definitely a book that will make you think, and it makes you want to talk to people who have also read the book. So don't read the blurb, don't read any in-depth reviews of it, just read the book. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like what you see. Have you read any of these books, or are you interested in reading any of these books? Let me know down below in the comments. See you around the tubes.